my responsibility is to appraise every property in the county at market value or what it would sell for on January 1 if it was listed for sale for a reasonable amount of time. So it's not whether or not you're willing to sell your property doesn't really come into the equation. This is all the laws are set by the state and by the legislature, and we try to operate within those laws. The tax rates are set after the fact, and so that really is what determines how much your taxes are. The legislature is in session right now, and they're reviewing the homestead exemptions and determining how much of an impact that will have, whether they increase that exemption, whether they do something else with it, whether they make an entire cap, like a 5% cap on limitation for all properties. There's a lot of stuff the legislature is debating on and how they want to go about providing property tax relief. If you're looking at your neighbor's houses on your website, on our website, don't compare what their taxes are compared to what your taxes are. People have different exemptions. Over 65, disabled person, disabled veteran. There's all these different exemptions that the state allows, and so their situation may not be the same as yours. If you have an over 65 or disabled, it freezes your taxes or has a tax ceiling. And so their tax ceiling could have been set back in 1980, or it could have been set last year. And so you have to look at the values and not what the taxes are.
So the first thing is the thing you got in the mail that I've seen several of y'all have in your hands. Make sure you understand that that is not a bill, that is an assessment. So you're not writing a check based on this. But in October you will get a bill based on that if you don't protest and do something about it. So that's one thing. The second thing I want to make sure you do is everybody should have a homestead exemption, or if that's your primary home, and or whatever the other exemptions you're allowed. Those are like clipping coupons. You know, you want to save some money, you want to make sure you have all the exemptions you can, especially the homestead, so that if they raise your property values, you're only going to go up 10% in the taxable value every year. So that is very important to have. And you can actually retroactively file that for up to 2 years, right?
Yes, sir.
For up to 2 years. So even if you haven't done it now, but I've lived in the house since January. I mean, since January 2 years ago, I can file, and you can retroactively get your homestead on there. You're only allowed one of those, but you can get your homestead in there. So make sure you have all your exemptions filed.
I had a guy come into my office the other day, and he said my taxes are too high. And my answer to him was, well, so are mine. How can I help you? I don't like paying them either, okay? But where we live, it comes with services. And those services come at a cost. So that's why we have taxes.
The reason the state does this is used for school finance and school funding. So if I'm off by more than 5% for the entire school district for more than 2 or 3 years, then the state says, well, you should have had your value at this level, but you're down here, you're 5% or more below that number. And so the state will only fund them as if they had raised taxes at the higher level where the state says they should have been. And at that point, the school can't go back and adjust their tax rates. The school is just out that money. In some of the other schools, it's anywhere between $500,000 to several $1 million. The school is just out.
Joe Don Mr. Bobbitt was talking about the appraisal aspect. Property taxes come from two components. One is your appraised value, which, as Mr. Stone said, he saw the appraisal notices in your hands. The other is the tax rate. Okay? So what happens is Mr. Bobbitt and his staff certify the values to my office on July 25th or as soon as practicable thereafter every year. And we take that value and work with all the entities we collect for. We are a consolidated county. We collect for 44 entities, which is the county, all the cities, all the school districts, and MCC. And then each one of the entities, their governing bodies, city council, school board, approves that rate. And once we have that rate approved, then we work with the value, put that together, and then we get your tax bill. I talked about that delinquency date of February the 1st. Okay? But there is an opportunity to pay taxes that, in a sense, is an interest-free loan. One, if you're over 65 or disabled, you can do what's called a quarter pay, which means not that you pay quarterly, but you pay a quarter of your taxes in January, March, May, and July. A quarter of your taxes each one of those months. And that's an interest-free loan. If you're over 65, why not? Okay? Another option is a deferral, which if you're over 65 or disabled, you can apply for a deferral at the appraisal district. And what that does is it defers your taxes.
The tax deferral is another option. It's not an exemption. It's just an option to defer taxes. Randy will speak about this a little more. He knows more about the tax deferral than I do. My office, you have to apply for the tax deferral in my office. If you're over 65 or disabled, you can apply for a tax deferral.